Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
हरे कृष्णा धनोत्थानम प्रभु जी
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you all for joining in. Give me a quick second, we'll start our session. Okay. Just give me a quick second, please. Where is my presentation? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna everyone, we welcome you all for today evening discussion on Mahabharata, which we have been doing from last several weekends. So I'll share the presentation, we'll offer prayers and begin our session for today. Wish you can improve, sound is okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
Okay, all right. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatai Dishatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So we are on the 26th episode of the series of discussion on Mahabharata and controversies. We started with a discussion in Hindi. However, later on I believe recently we started discussion in English because everyone was fine with Hindi and English, but there were some who requested particularly for English language. I hope language will be fine for everyone. So Udyog Parv. So before we get into this discussion of today's topic, this Udyog Parv is the fourth book of Mahabharata. And we just concluded our discussion from Virat Parva. So I'll just give you a quick recap of it, of what we discussed in the previous episode, and then we'll begin our discussion here. So in a previous episode, we saw how Arjuna single-handedly defeated all the Kauravas, the whole Kauravas army. Bhishma Pitama was defeated, Duryodhana was defeated, Karna was defeated twice. He was humiliated twice. Yet, Karna always believed that Arjuna is not in comparison to him. He always thought he is far better than Arjuna. But on this particular day, Arjuna defeated Karna twice. And not only this, Arjuna had defeated Karna before also. Does anyone remember how Arjuna had defeated Karna before? It was not a direct combat, rather an indirect combat. So if you know, you may write down the answer. I'll take a look at your chat box. And that had happened during the during the Vana Parva, when Duryodhana, Shakuni, Dushasan, Karna, and all their army, all their party had gone to the side of a lake where Pandavas were spending their concluding 12th year. At that time, they reached there, they wanted to embarrass and they wanted to humiliate Pandavas, but as the destiny would prevail, they got humiliated and all the Kauravas got defeated by Gandharvas. At that time, Gandharvas defeated Karna. Karna was defeated. Duryodhana was captured along with his other brothers and wives, and they were taken back to Indraloka. That was the whole plan of Indra. However, some of their soldiers went to the side of Pandavas and they pleaded to Yudhishthira for help. And then Arjuna and Bhima went and fought with Gandharvas, defeated Gandharvas, and rescued Duryodhana. So, in other words, Gandharvas defeated Karna and Arjuna defeated Gandharvas, which makes it very clear. It's a simple mathematics that Arjuna defeated Karna indirectly in that sense, and also Duryodhana. So that was a first incident, and now we have a second incident that we discussed last time. Along with that, in the previous episode, we also spoke about the marriage ceremony of Abhimanyu with the daughter of the king, Virat, Uttara. We spoke a little bit about the details of the marriage. However, we decided to skip the details. Otherwise, Srila Vyasadeva goes into a lot of details in Mahabharata describing the grand celebration of the marriage of the son of Arjuna. In 13 years of exile of Pandavas, this was the first experience, a joyful event, a celebration that Pandavas had attended or had organized of a part of it. There was a grand celebration, and this marriage was particularly important for two main reasons. One, this allowed Pandavas to have a relationship with Virat, a bond with Virat, who was a great king. And now Pandavas will get, Pandavas have got Virat as their ally, who could support Pandavas in their goal of getting their kingdom back. And second, this marriage ceremony allowed all the well-wishers of Pandavas and all the well-wishers of Virat to visit Matsya Desh, or the land of Virat, where all of them could come together, where Krishna and Balram had also come, where now all of them have come and they can decide on the next phase. What will happen? What should Pandavas do if Duryodhana does not agree to return back the kingdom? So that was more or less the discussion that we have done last time. And today we'll begin with the book, the fifth book, right? Adi Parva, Sabha Parva, Virat Parva, Vana Parva, Virat Parva, and now we'll begin our discussion on the fifth book of Mahabharata called as Udyog. The word Udyog means effort. What does this effort indicates to? In this particular book dedicated by Vyasadeva to talk about how there was an effort made by the Pandavas to convince Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, to peacefully return the kingdom back to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Simultaneously, there was also an effort made by Dhritarashtra to console Yudhishthira Maharaj, to explain Yudhishthira Maharaj, to tell him that Yudhishthira Maharaj, you are a very pious person, you are Dharamraj. Don't you understand your younger brother Duryodhana? He's so haughty, he's so arrogant. He is not going to give up the kingdom. So why don't you go to the forest? Ultimate goal of life is to attain perfection, and the perfection can be attained in two ways. The Brahmanas, the learned sages says the perfection of life can be attained in two ways. The first way is to renounce and go to the forest. And second way is to perform your duty without attachment. Both the ways gives you perfection of life. So like this, Dhritarashtra, along with various reasons which we'll discuss in today's session, tried to convince Yudhishthira Maharaj that he should give up the desire of getting the kingdom back, because Duryodhana is just not going to do that. And finally, the last thing where the effort is focused, where particularly Lord Shri Krishna himself goes as a messenger on behalf of the Pandavas to Hastinapur to make a final attempt to avoid the fratricidal war between the brothers. Because everyone knew in the whole world, if this war had to happen, there would be a complete destruction, because Hastinapur, that was a seat of the king of the whole world, and the most powerful warriors lived, and they are allied to the Hastinapur, to the king of Hastinapur. However, on the side there was Krishna, there were Pandavas, and of course, many people are going to come in to help them also. Which means if the war happens between Pandavas and Kauravas, it will be one-time battle where the whole world will be destroyed. It's a kind of a battle between the two world powers. So there were all the attempts were made, and this whole Parva is dedicated on this, describing the efforts. And this Parva makes it very clear that Krishna was not responsible, because many people blame Lord Shri Krishna because Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, because of which Arjuna got convinced and he fought the battle. And then later on, 60 crore people died. If Krishna would not have convinced Arjuna, then Arjuna would have gone to the forest and so many people would have survived. There would have been no massacre of any kind. But the point is, that discussion between Krishna and Arjuna happens in Bhishma Parva, which is the sixth book of Mahabharata, which will happen right after this. So before we get into the battlefield, we need to understand where Krishna and Pandavas all together had made all the efforts to avoid the war. But Dhritarashtra did not listen to anyone's advice. And this part of a discussion we'll also be going to do in our Gita Essence of Bhagavad Gita session, which we are beginning right after Mahabharata session. We'll be giving a little bit of recap of it in that. The prominent questions which are raised in this particular Parva. If you're reading in the flow, if our discussion, as our discussion is going in the flow of book after book, so the major question at this point of time is, Pandavas have lived through their 13 years of exile. Now, would Kauravas return their kingdom? Pandavas have done their terms and condition properly, rightfully. So, क्या Kauravas अब पांडवों के संग अपना term and condition का भी पालन करेंगे? Are they going to follow their term and condition, which means they have to return back in the press, back to Yudhishthira Maharaj? What about Dhritarashtra? Will Dhritarashtra follow the advice of Bhishma, Vidura, Dronacharya, Sanjaya, Parshuram, Narad Muni? You name a sage, everyone came to meet Dhritarashtra, everyone told Dhritarashtra. And in fact, Lord Shri Krishna himself came. And not only Lord Shri Krishna personally spoke to Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra even saw the universal form of the Lord. And not only he saw the universal form of the Lord, Dhritarashtra later on in Bhishma Parva, he even heard the whole Bhagavad Gita message. वो बड़ा ही ढीठ आदमी था ये. इतना कुछ होने के बाद भी this fellow would not change. So there are some people, how much ever you try, they just will not give up. They will just not change. And that is because of their material desires are so strong and deep-rooted. They're so insecure and fearful. They fear, if I lose, if I give up, then I lose everything. And that is what the character of Dhritarashtra, we'll discuss that ahead also. He was willing to put the lives of his 100 sons at risk. He was willing to put the life of all the Kshatriyas in the world at risk, just because Dhritarashtra wanted to be at the throne. He had this desire. He felt he was cheated by destiny. According to destiny, he was supposed to be the king because he was the eldest son. However, because he was born blind, due to which he could not become the king. So he felt that destiny deceived him. Destiny cheated him. Dhritarashtra, although well educated in Vedic scriptures, never ever understood or took responsibility that what had happened to me is a result of my own karma. I don't have vision. That's probably because of my own karma. Rather, he blamed destiny for being partial to him. So that's what Dhritarashtra, because of which he was so adamant that this is my birthright claim. I'm supposed to be king, and at any cost, I'm not going to give it up. Finally, the discussion comes to Duryodhana. Will Duryodhana accept the peace proposal that was brought by Lord Shri Krishna himself? So let's begin our discussion for today. Was Lord Shri Krishna responsible for the war? That all these things would be made clear through this discussion. 1 second. Hare Krishna. Oh, thank you. So let's go back to the Virat's kingdom. where everyone have assembled, and that's where a meeting is happening now. And the purpose of the meeting is to find out the next course of action. Hastinapur have been informed, all the Kauravas already know that Pandavas have completed their 13 years of exile. Now, are Kauravas or will Kauravas be willing to return back the kingdom of Yudhishthira Maharaj? So, like that, the discussion is happening between all the kings, where Krishna and Balram is also present. At that point of time, 1 second, please. Yes, Prabhu? No, no, no. I told him no. Yeah, sorry. Um, what was I talking about? Yeah, so everyone is very fired up. Everyone is quite angry also with all the kind of troubles that Pandavas had to face. They were cheated. They were betrayed of their trust. So as a Kshatriya, they were boiling and they wanted to take a support Yudhishthira cause, and they wanted to fight with the Duryodhana and Kauravas to reclaim the prestige of Pandavas that they had been robbed of in that assembly where Draupadi was insulted. So in that point of time, Lord Shri Krishna got up. He said, okay, well, I do understand all of you are so upset. You all want to fight with Kauravas, defeat them. You want to, restore the prestige of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Pandavas, and Draupadi. Fantastic. But war is not a solution. War means destruction. So here is what I would suggest. This is Lord Krishna's word. Lord Shri Krishna is not supporting war. Lord Shri Krishna said, well, we should first establish Duryodhana's intention. We should send a trusted, reliable messenger to Hastinapur. And by all means, we should try to settle this affair peacefully. Let us avoid any unnecessary violence. And like this, many kings began to clap, began to appreciate what Lord Shri Krishna had said. And then finally, Drupad Maharaj spoke and he said, yes, what Lord Shri Krishna has said is indeed correct. So we should send our most trusted and most knowledgeable Brahmana as a messenger who could go and tell Dhritarashtra what is the duty of a king according to Vedic scriptures, what a king is supposed to do at this point of time. If Dhritarashtra still would not follow to the words of wisdom spoken by a Brahmana, then Brahmana should tell him that if you don't agree, then be ready or be prepared for the war. So like this, Drupad found a Brahmin, his most reliable, trusted Brahmana, and he asked him to go and carry the message. Simultaneously, they also began to prepare for the war. Now, why they began to prepare for the war? It's very interesting. Because Drupad concluded with this. Drupad said, my dear Lord, although you want peace to prevail, but you, I, and everyone knows, nobody can convince Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. Nobody can go against their will. They have already decided. They want the war to happen, and war will indeed happen, but yet will follow your desire. At that point, Lord Shri Krishna said, so be it. So I will take your permission. I will leave, go back to Dwarka. If the peace mission fails, call for me, and I will come back. If Duryodhana does not return Yudhishthira kingdom, I will come back and then will prepare for the war. So that's how the meeting concluded. The messenger was sent to Hastinapur. So here, messenger leaves from Virat's land or Matsya Pradesh to go to Hastinapur. And in the meantime, as I said, they all began to prepare for war. And another messenger was sent, a group of messengers was sent to rest of the world to find the allies for the Pandavas. And similarly, Kauravas were also preparing for the war. Everyone was going to different kings and asking for help. Would you support me? Would you support my cause? And this was going on. In the meantime, Lord Shri Krishna had returned to Dwarka. And Duryodhana got to know that Krishna have returned to Dwarka, Krishna and Balram have returned to Dwarka. So he immediately got onto his chariot and he thought, I should immediately go to Lord and ask for his help. And here, Arjuna, with the permission of Yudhishthira Maharaj, also left for Dwarka to ask for permission of the Lord. Because now everyone is looking for allies. They're preparing for war in case if Kauravas don't hear to the peace proposal. Interestingly, both Duryodhana and Arjuna arrived at the same time at the palace gate of Lord Shri Krishna. You can imagine what would be the reaction of Duryodhana when he saw Arjuna climbing down from his chariot. Duryodhana was shocked. Oh no, he's a brother of my enemy. He's in fact enemy. What is he doing here? As soon as Duryodhana saw Arjuna, he immediately ran into the palace so that he could be the first person to go and meet Lord Shri Krishna. What did Arjuna do? Completely relaxed. He was not in any anxiety. He was not in a competitive spirit. He was not fearful that if Duryodhana goes and meets Krishna first, then he may have Krishna and his army. I would have nothing. Arjuna had no anxiety. Whereas Duryodhana became so fearful when he saw Arjuna has also come at the same time and he went running inside. It teaches a very important lesson for all of us, which reflects or which in fact explains us the consciousness of Arjuna and Duryodhana. Arjuna had a spiritual consciousness and Duryodhana had a material consciousness. What is spiritual and material consciousness in that context? Spiritual consciousness is based on spiritual wisdom. Ishopanishad, starting verse, Om Purnam Madha Purnam Midat Purnat Purnam Madachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So this particular verse, invocation verse in Ishopanishad says, the Lord is unlimited and the Lord is complete. And complete units manifest from the Lord, which means this material world, yet Lord remains complete. In other words, those who take shelter of the Lord, they understand that Lord is unlimited. Lord's energies are unlimited. In other words, in spiritual consciousness, there is no scarcity, there is no competition. Because in material consciousness, if I have 10 rupees and if I give you 5 rupees, I would be left with 5. Whereas in spiritual world and in spiritual consciousness, there is never a scarcity of anything. Of course, externally, even if a devotee would give up 5 rupees, he'll be left with 5 only. If he gives up 5 from the 10, he'll be left with 5. However, the spiritual consciousness empowers a person, or I would say, empowers a person to have a consciousness of abundance. You understand abundance? Which means the person's heart is very big and great, where he can serve, give in abundance to others, yet never be scared or fearful about his own maintenance. Why? Because he knows Krishna is unlimited. It is from Krishna all these material worlds have manifested, yet that Supreme Krishna is unlimited and complete. So that Supreme Lord, why wouldn't he provide for me when he's providing for every living entity? How can the Supreme Lord ever put me in scarcity? It is just never possible. And in fact, Krishna says, the more you give, the more I provide. If a devotee serves other, he never have to be worried about anything. Krishna always protects his devotee. So here Arjuna, in that spiritual consciousness, very peacefully in a relaxed mood, walks into the inner chamber of Lord Shri Krishna. And Duryodhana is sweating. Kya hoga? Arjuna bhi aage hai. Lord will listen to me or Arjuna. And Duryodhana is in full anxiety. He ran, and to his surprise, or maybe unfortunately for him, when he went in the inner chamber, he saw Lord Shri Krishna taking a nap. So Duryodhana went and sat right next to the face of the Lord. So when Lord will wake up, then Krishna would see Duryodhana first. Whereas Arjuna walked and came and stood right at the opposite end of the bed with the folded hands, with tears of love dripping through his eyes for being able to see Lord Shri Krishna. And here, Lord Shri Krishna is peacefully taking a nap. So both Duryodhana and Arjuna are waiting for Krishna to wake up. Arjuna is not worried, is not thinking about, oh, Duryodhana has come before me, I would lose, Duryodhana would ask before me. However, Duryodhana is very agitated, he's very disturbed. And that is what happens to people in material consciousness. And that's the reason. It is not if you become rich in this world, you will become happy. The wealth does not necessarily brings you happiness. It is the richness of our consciousness, which means is the development of our consciousness, which brings us happiness. Duryodhana, despite being so powerful, despite having Bhishma Pitama, Dronacharya, Ashwathama, Kripacharya, Karna, and many great warriors by his side, he's still he's still panting. He's still worried what will happen. Whereas Arjuna and Pandavas have a very meager army as compared to Duryodhana's. Still, Arjuna is completely relaxed. He has no worry. Why? Because he knows Krishna would always protect his devotees. So in the meantime, Lord Shri Krishna got up. And when Lord Shri Krishna got up, he first saw right in front of him across the bed, Arjuna was standing. And then when Lord Shri Krishna got up and then he looked at the side, he saw Duryodhana sitting there. And when Lord saw both of them, Lord said, Hare Krishna, why both of you have come here? And suddenly Duryodhana leaped up and he said, My dear Krishna, I came here first. You have to fulfill my desire first because I came here. Krishna said, Hey, wait a second. What desire? Why are you so disturbed? Tell me peacefully what you want. And then Duryodhana began to teach about dharma to Krishna, that what is a religious duty. And he said, My dear Lord, you are known for being equally disposed toward both myself and Arjuna. Thus, it behooves you, it means it is your duty to first listen to me. Why? Because I came here first. And like that, Duryodhana made 3 points to Lord Shri Krishna. In other words, he tried to persuade Krishna through logic, through dharma, to convince Krishna that Krishna should first listen to Duryodhana's desire, what Duryodhana's proposal. So he made following points. My dear Lord, I came here first to seek your assistance in the war, which is anyways going to be fought. Second, because I arrived before Arjuna, thus it is your duty to assist me rather than him. And finally, he said, it's a practice of a good man or a dharmic person, to listen to the person who had come first. So because I have come first, so Krishna, because you're the best of the men, and Dharma says you should listen to the person who have arrived first, so I should get the opportunity. So Duryodhana was full bliss, all smiling. How brilliantly I have spoken. I have given Krishna logic. I have given Krishna dharma. Now Krishna has to be totally convinced and he is going to listen to me. Krishna smiled at Duryodhana and he said, yes, why not? But before we get into it, what discussion happened, let us just briefly reflect on Duryodhana's conduct here. You look at Duryodhana, he is trying to teach Lord Shri Krishna about the duty of a good man, about dharma. And it is Duryodhana who later on himself is going to insult Lord Shri Krishna. It is Duryodhana who himself is not following dharma, which means Pandavas have rightfully, dutifully have completed 13 years. Yet Duryodhana does not recognize that. Bhishma Pitama, everyone said, Duryodhana, Pandavas have completed their exile. You should give their kingdom back. But Duryodhana doesn't recognize that. But same Duryodhana is teaching dharma to Krishna. Krishna, dharma says, whoever comes to seek for help first, you should listen. Because I came first, so you should act as a gentleman and you should listen to me. So, a reflection. It is always easy to give good advices. It is always easy to instruct others, but it is very difficult to practice it. In other words, to instruct others on morality, on dharma is easy, but to practice is difficult. So here I have a quick question for all of you. Probably you can see on your screen. How many of you agree, disagree, are not sure? What do you think about it? Take 5 more seconds to respond. The question is, how many of you agree that to speak and instruct others is very easy, but to follow is very difficult? Hiranyakashipu, he taught the science of a soul and a karma to his mother, to the wives of Hiranyaksh. but he never followed that in himself. Similarly, Kamsa, he spoke about the science of karma to Devaki, but he never believed and practiced in himself that if I do a sinful karma, I will also get a reaction. Jarasandha, when Shishupal was defeated by Lord Shri Krishna or Rukmani was kidnapped by Krishna, Jarasandha told Shishupal, don't worry, there is a supreme personality of Godhead. Like that, they spoke, but they never followed themselves. So, what do you think about it? I hope some of you, most of you, could give your feedback on this. So, yes, this is correct. Uh, where is the result? I'm doing this polling for the first time. So this is the poll results that you have when everyone says that actually that's the correct. To follow, to practice is difficult, but to speak is very easy. And that is what technically called as hypocritical behavior or hypocrisy. So how do we fix up this behavior? Just few handful tips to practice in one's life. First thing, we should always keep our promises. Second, we should speak the truth. Third, we should walk the truth, which means what we speak, walk the truth, means walk the talk. What we speak, we should follow. And fourth, we should set an example by our own actions. Then we will be truthful to what we tell others. So if slowly and gradually we become conscious about these 4 points, once again, always keep your promises. Whatever you say, whatever you commit, you should always keep it. Keep the promise. Second, always speak the truth. Third, whatever you teach others, you should practice in your own life. And fourth, always set an example through actions rather than words. If we become conscious of these 3, 4 points in our life, all of us will be able to rise above this hypocritical behavior, which we all agreed that it's very easy to speak but difficult to follow. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna then responded to Duryodhana and he said, hey Duryodhana, I accept that you came before, but I saw Arjuna before than you. So it does not matter who came first. What matters is who I saw first. So the Dharma says, whoever I saw first should be considered who has come should be considered that he has arrived first. And second point, Lord Shri Krishna said, well, Duryodhana, you're talking to me about dharma. So dharma also teaches that first we should listen to a younger brother. A younger brother should be given an opportunity before the elder brother to express his desire. So here, Arjuna is younger to you. Thus, I would let Arjuna to choose an option. Like that, Lord Shri Krishna spoke and then he offered 2 options. Hey Arjuna and Duryodhana, I give you 2 options because both of you are dear to me. I am impartial to both of you and I don't have a conflict with any one of you. So I give you 2 options. Both of you can choose one option. But Arjuna gets the first opportunity to choose. And Krishna gave 2 options. One, you can have my whole Narayani Sena, which is not different than I in strength. Second, or else you can choose me alone, but I will not fight. I will not pick any weapon. Now that's a tricky thing. That's pretty tricky thing. And who has an opportunity to pick a choice first? Arjuna. Think a little bit about the background of Arjuna. A very important point here. Now, Pandavas have almost 5 to 7 Akshahani Sena by this time, and Kauravas have double the army. Pandavas have very less army with them, and the size of army matters in a war. It's a face-to-face direct combat. Now here, Krishna have offered one man versus whole army. You can choose this one man who is gonna not take part in war, will not lift the weapon, or you can choose my whole army. According to all logic, whatever science, whatever you want to use, it all tells that if I need to become stronger in the war, in the battle, then I need to increase the size of my army. What will I do with this coward man who is not even gonna lift a weapon? And now, thirdly, this was totally unexpected to both Arjuna and Duryodhana. It is not that Arjuna had a discussion with Yudhishthira Maharaj and he thought, if Lord Shri Krishna gives such and such option, my dear brother, what should I choose? And Arjuna didn't had had an option where he could tell Krishna, my dear Lord, can you give me 5 minutes? Can I just do phone a friend? Call my elder brother and consult with them. What should I choose? He didn't have an option. Neither he was afraid. If I choose Krishna, would my elder brother, all of them, would they criticize me? Arjuna, as soon as Krishna stopped saying, there are two options, choose me, choose my whole army, Arjuna immediately said, my dear Lord, I choose you. And Lord Shri Krishna made it very, very difficult. It was not a difficult choice. To give you an example, if imagine Krishna would have said, I propose two options. First option, me and my 1/4 army. Or no, let's say this way. You can choose my army, you can choose me. And whoever chooses me, I will fight in the war. Okay? You choose my army, you choose me. If you choose me, I will fight in the war, whoever chooses me. That's also a fair enough comparison. Then Arjuna says, Krishna, I choose you. That's fantastic. Because if Krishna is going to fight, then there is no way anyone can fight against Lord. But here, Krishna said what? No, I am not even going to fight. I will not lift a weapon. And he made a very difficult proposal. In other words, Krishna wanted to make sure that Arjuna takes full shelter of Krishna. In other words, Krishna demanded full shelter when he made the second option. Choose me alone, and I would even not lift a weapon. Just like Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajam mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyam mokshami masuchaha. Something, an application of that had happened here in this incident with Arjuna. Will Arjuna choose Krishna, surrender to Krishna completely, where Krishna says, you just take my shelter? Or Krishna should take shelter of Krishna's energy, which means his whole Narayani Sena. Like this in our life, day in, day out, we are also asked to make choices. Are we going to take shelter of Lord's, which means take shelter of Lord's instructions in Bhagavad Gita? Or are we going to take shelter of Lord Shri Krishna's energies? Here, the energies refer to Narayani Sena. In another case, the energies could mean, the expansion of that energy could be putting more faith in our own wisdom, putting more faith in what the world speaks about, putting faith in our own wealth, our own qualifications. These are all energies of the Lord, expansion of it. Or are we going to put faith single-handedly in what Krishna says, what Krishna wants us to do, what Krishna have taught us through Bhagavad Gita? For Arjuna, the point was very clear. He did not thought even twice, and he immediately said, my dear Lord, I want you. Even before Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Krishna, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, Arjuna had already shown full surrender to Krishna. Yes or no? Do you agree with that? And because of this, he was not at all worried while selecting Krishna. He had full faith on Krishna. And that is the reason Krishna in Bhagavad Gita makes a very interesting statement in 6th chapter, 47th verse. Who is the favorite among everyone? Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gatinantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah. इस छठे अध्याय का 47 श्लोक है भगवद गीता का, जब भगवान कहते हैं श्रद्धावान भजते यो माम, जो श्रद्धा से, faith, who has faith on me, and with that faith he renders devotional service unto me, he is most dear to me. योगिनाम, सब योगियों में सबसे सर्वश्रेष्ठ वो है जो मेरी शरण लेता है श्रद्धा से, full faith. And then Krishna begins 7th chapter, which is the middle section of Bhagavad Gita 7 to 12, where Lord Shri Krishna speaks about the most secret and a confidential knowledge to Arjuna. Why? Because Arjuna had already shown that he has full faith in Krishna. And that's how Krishna began to reveal more about his opulences to Arjuna. So here, This particular incident where Arjuna had shown full faith on Krishna, he had not even a second thought about what others going to think about him. They're going to find fault with his decision to choose Krishna, who is not even going to lift a weapon. This particular episode actually glorifies Arjuna's devotion towards Lord Shri Krishna. That he had so much faith in Krishna, even Krishna is not going to take part, yet Arjuna wants Lord Shri Krishna by his side. So when Duryodhana heard this, please make a guess. What would have happened to Duryodhana when Duryodhana heard this? Let me put it other way around. If the same question was asked to Duryodhana first, would you choose first option or second option? You can reply on the chat box. If the first option, take a Narayani Sena, second option to choose Krishna. If Duryodhana was given that opportunity first to ask, what do you think Duryodhana would have chosen? Narayani Sena, that is option one, or second, what is that? Krishna. What do you think he would have chosen? Write one or two. Please reply to everyone. Don't reply privately so everyone can see what you are writing. What Duryodhana would have chosen? The energies of the Lord or Lord himself? The energies of the Lord or Narayani Sena represents option one and Krishna option two. So here Duryodhana very intelligently said, first of all, when Duryodhana heard this, he began to laugh. Of course, he was not laughing out loud. He began to dance within his mind, by the way. It's a metaphoric statement. He was super joyful. He said, what? These Pandavas are crazy. These people are fools. How can Arjuna choose this coward man? Because when Lord Shri Krishna made those two proposals, Duryodhana's heart sank. He literally got a heart attack. He said, what kind of proposal is this? Of course, Arjuna is going to ask for the Narayani Sena. And what will I do with this coward boy? He's a useless person if he's not going to even lift a weapon. But when Arjuna asked for Krishna, Duryodhana was in joy, in ecstasy. He said, what foolish people are these? So of course, he did not express it openly, but he thought for sure at that point of time that this is an utter mistake. And he realized his mistake, considering that Arjuna had made a mistake only by 18th day, when finally he was killed. And then he realized that what a big mistake I made by choosing Narayani Sena. I should have chosen Krishna. So Lord Shri Krishna then turned to Duryodhana. Duryodhana, congratulations, you get my Narayani Sena. You know what Duryodhana said? All of you listening to the character of Duryodhana agree. He would have chosen for Narayani Sena. You know what Duryodhana said? My dear Lord, well, if that's the desire of my dear brother Arjuna, my younger brother, if he wants to have you, what else can I do? I have no other option. You have given him the opportunity of first choice. You have chosen it. Well, all right. I am fine. I am fine to accept your Narayani Sena. And with your permission, O Krishna, O Keshava, I shall not depart. Immediately, when his desire was fulfilled, this fellow disappeared. He did not even wait to thank Krishna. He did not even spend the time. He did not ask, my dear Lord, how are you? Can I serve you? Nothing. He had come with an agenda. His agenda was fulfilled and he disappeared. How many of you have come across situations like this? Let me put it more clearly. Here, you see in the character of Duryodhana, he had nothing to give and take with Krishna. He had no affection. Forget about love. He was totally self-centered. He came to Krishna, glorifying Krishna that you are so great, you are the supreme Lord, whatnot, just to get his purpose accomplished. Similarly, many times, many people come to all of us. I'm not sure what's your experience, but I've had many experiences, and whoever is in the role of a mentor would have this experience where people come to meet you. They particularly ask for your time, but they come with a very clear agenda. And what is their agenda? Not to ask you about your well-being, not to have a loving exchanges. No, they just come to dump their trash onto you, which means they consider us, consider you in that case, if somebody's coming to, as a dustbin, where they want to come and dump their trash, their headache on you. And once they're done speaking, their mind becomes cool and pacified, they immediately push off. Now, I want you to reflect for a second. If somebody does like this to you, he asks for your time, he comes and meets you, and then he just goes on speaking about his problems in his life. I'm facing this, I have this problem, I have this challenge, I have this crisis. It goes on, or she goes on and on and on. And you're hearing. And once that person is done speaking, and she's, oh, okay, huh? My time is over now. This is the time for me to go and pick up my kids. Oh, kaam wali aane wali hai. Oh, I have another meeting, I should leave. Immediately gets up and pushes off. If this would happen to you, how would you? Okay, the results are still shown. Stop sharing results and polling. How would you feel? And this is the second poll, which you can all see. If you are treated in this manner, where a person comes, takes your time, but he comes just to dump his problems onto your head, he is least bothered about it. Just like Duryodhana did with Krishna, how would you feel? You see the polling on your screen right now? If you all can take maybe a few seconds, if you all are clear with the question, you can reply to it. What do you think? How many of you think you'll feel being used and disgusted? Or you'll say, oh, I will be so happy, I'll be so grateful that somebody at least took my time. Nobody asked for me. Somebody gave me some value. Or you're still not sure. So think about it. I see we have quite a few participants. Okay, they're taking their time to respond. Okay. So is everyone done? There's some more still waiting to respond to it. Okay, all of you have to be a little quick. If you are not clear, you can type in. I can repeat if you're still not clear with what I'm trying to say here. Okay, somebody has his hands up. Yes, please go ahead. You're unmuted. Speak up, please.
Hare Krishna. I'm audible. Am I audible?
You have to be a little louder, please. Yes.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Actually, I feel happy because I thought कि मैं किसी के काम आ पाई कि कोई मुझे अपनी बात बता रहा है, not because कि मेरा टाइम यूज हो गया, इसलिए नहीं हैप्पी, इसलिए हैप्पी कि मतलब किसी मेरे अंदर इतनी शक्ति है कि मैं दूसरे को सुन पा रही हूँ या उसको कुछ गाइड कर पा रही हूँ, इसलिए I feel happy.
Okay, that's a magnanimous point of view. But if this has to happen every day with you, where nobody is bothered about your well-being, if this had to happen to you, where nobody comes and asks you, I don't know what's your name here, but whatever. What's your name, by the way?
Nana Mithun. Nana. Actually, I am using my the son's name as he's doing.
Awesome. Nana, right?
Yes.
So if imagine, Nana, this is how people will deal with you. They ask for your time, but they never ask about your well-being. But they only come and dump their problems to you. And when their problems are done, when you want to speak to them, say something, suddenly they say, okay, time is up. I'm very busy. I leave. Which means nobody listened to you, but everyone wants you to listen to them. Then how would you feel is the point here? That's what Duryodhana did with Krishna. But as soon as this thing was done, he said, I'm leaving. Whereas Arjuna stayed back with Krishna. So obviously, as most of you responded, majority of you would feel used and disgusted. Now, he to all of you is Vishwakiran, are you unmuted? Okay, I just muted you.
Prabhuji, there is some disturbance in your voice.
Okay, I'll just fix it. Hey, Krishna, am I audible now better?
Yes, Prabhuji, it is better now. Thank
Okay. So please, as the Paul says, all of you personally would feel unhappy about it. You'll feel used and disgusted. And here's a point that I wanted to make in this context. Fact is, we all do all the time, or we behave like this all the time with the Lord. All the people, I'm not saying in particularly all of you, each one of you, but in general, you see people coming to temple, they ring the bell, they cry, they have come to Lord because they have a problem, and they dump, they kind of come to the Lord, tell, my dear Lord, please make sure my son gets visa to America, he can go for higher studies. Oh, my dear Lord, my daughter is not getting married, or maybe a new couple comes, my dear Lord, please bless us to have the best son or best daughter, whatnot. Majority people comes to the Lord with their desires, with their issues, with their agenda. But how many people actually bother to ask, my dear Lord, is there any way I can serve you? However, look at the greatness of the Lord. When the Lord sees somebody has arrived at the temple, Lord becomes hopeful, thinking, finally my son has come. Maybe he wants to finally, understand our relationship, acknowledge that I am his eternal father. But imagine what will be the situation of the Lord when he sees again and again this fellow comes. Every time comes with one or other desires, one of the problems. He just wants me to be his servant, to be his problem solver. But he never comes and asks me or my representatives in the temple, is there any way I can serve you? And what does Lord exactly want? Lord wants nothing. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prachati tadham bhaktya pratam ashnami pratatmanah. भगवान श्री कृष्ण भगवद गीता के 9वें अध्याय के 26वें श्लोक में इसमें श्लोक में 2 बार भक्ति शब्द का उपयोग करते हैं. Lord says, I am satisfied even if you offer me a leaf, a fruit. Patram pushpam. Patra means leaf, pushpa means flower, fruit, phala means fruit, toya means water. Of course, today all this thing cost money. If you have to purchase a water, if you have to get a water, you have to purchase distillery bottle and whatnot. But in those days when Lord Shri Krishna spoke this in Dwapar Yuga, none of these things costed money. Pani ka koi cost nahi tha. There were fresh rivers where everyone can go and fetch a water. Leaves, fruits, and flowers were available in abundance. Krishna is saying, even if you offer me things which are available in free, look at the magnanimity of the Lord. Think about it for a second. Krishna says, even if you offer me things which are available in free, which are my gifts to all of you, even if you offer that with bhakti, with devotion, I will be so pleased. Krishna, Lord, is so compassionate and magnanimous that despite all our ways of dealing with the Lord, until we all got connected to Srila Prabhupada's mission, Bhagavad Gita, as we had discussed, or we're going to start from today evening. How many of you agree that whenever we had gone to the temple or whenever we had prayed to the Lord in our altar in the house, we had always asked from the Lord? We had never asked or made a question to the Lord, my dear Lord, can I serve you? How many of you agree with this? It was Srila Prabhupada who taught us the difference in consciousness. Please say yes or no on the group. How many of you agree before connecting with this Khan, before reading Srila Prabhupada's book, we always ask the Lord, do this for me, give this me, free me from this problem. But it was after coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON devotees and his literatures that we actually got to know the reverse equation, that actually we should go and ask the Lord, can I serve you? Because Krishna is person. Just like all of us will feel offended, disgusted, will feel used, that people come and always ask me, always take my time, but they never ask me for my well-being. Similarly, Lord Shri Krishna, and Lord Shri Krishna is so kind. He doesn't ask something very expensive. But if only we do something for Lord with the bhakti. Well, Duryodhana was like an ordinary person like us in that context of consciousness. I would say I would put it the other way around, all of us had a similar conscience like Duryodhana. We are just like Duryodhana went to Lord to get his agenda done. Before we got connected to the bhakti movement, we also had same agenda, same consciousness like Duryodhana, where if we ever approach Lord, we always approach Lord for getting our desires fulfilled. Well, in the case of Arjuna, Arjuna was not like that. Arjuna stayed back with the Lord. He wanted to spend time with the Lord. He wanted to associate with the Lord. And all of you today have made a transition, depending on for how long you have been connected with all of us or with this con movement. All of you would agree. Today, your consciousness have made a transition from Duryodhana's consciousness to Arjuna's consciousness, where now you want to develop a relationship with the Lord. Now you have a desire. You even think about serving the Lord. You become happy when an opportunity arises for you to serve the Lord, and all that, crying, all that demands that will go on in our head, I should have this, I should get this from the Lord. Now that has reduced, that noise have reduced, and now there is a desire in our heart. There is a training of consciousness that had happened, with which now when we approach the Lord, we have this thought, can I serve you, my dear Lord? Can I do something for you? How many of you have felt that there is a little transition that have happened in your consciousness since being connected with the Bhakti movement? Again, please go back to your chat. Of course, I could have corrected a poll, done a poll for that. But let's say yes or no. How many of you agree that yes, I have undergone some transition from this consciousness like Duryodhana, always demanding, selfish, self-centered, to a consciousness where now I actually want to develop a relationship with Lord. I care for Lord. I want to serve Him. I want to serve His devotees. If you have made a transition, just like Arjuna was so dear to the Lord, similarly, all of us have also become very dear to the Lord. Because now we are walking into the footpath or footsteps of Arjuna. Before connecting to ISKCON, before Bhakti movement, we all were more or less walking in the footsteps of Duryodhana, and we were heading straight towards destruction. And today, we have been changed, we have been transformed, fortunately, for good, where now we can develop relationship with the Lord, we can please the Lord, we know how to do it. So that's what happened. Duryodhana have left. Arjuna decided to spend with Krishna, time with Krishna, and then Krishna said, Arjuna, what did you do? Why did you selected me? Now, Lord Shri Krishna have this nature of testing his devotees again and again. Lord Shri, why did you selected me? I am of no use to you. I'm not going to fight. Why? You know what Arjuna said? My dear Lord, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is if I have your association. If I have your association, I would always be victorious. If I have your association, there would always be auspiciousness. I need not depend on your energies. Why? Because I know that you are the source of all energies. Those Narayani Sena is a manifestation of your energy. So I am not dependent on external resources. I don't count on them. What matters to me is you. And here, Arjuna, as I quoted this verse before, right before Bhagavad Gita, long before Bhagavad Gita, showed Lord Shri Krishna his full surrender. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. You have a perfect example in the form of Arjuna, where he showed and proved that yes, I am willing to take full shelter of Lord Shri Krishna, and I have done that. So, like this, Arjuna responded, and because of this attitude of Arjuna, Arjuna was qualified to hear Bhagavad Gita, to understand Bhagavad Gita. Of course, this is not a Bhagavad Gita class. Bhagavad Gita class is going to start at 7:30, but Mahabharata conclusion is to understand Bhagavad Gita. That's a focus. Let me make one important point here. All of us are in the process of developing this consciousness that Arjuna had. Arjuna represented full surrender to the Lord. And because Arjuna had that full surrender to the Lord, Krishna could speak the message of Bhagavad Gita, and some say 1.5 hours, some say 45 minutes, whatever is the time. Let's say on an average 1 hour. Lord Shri Krishna can speak the message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna in an hour, and Arjuna understood it thoroughly. For us, it may take lifetimes, or else it may take us, depending on where we are, it may take us weeks, months, years, or maybe lifetimes. What makes a difference? The difference is in our surrender. I say that out loud. What makes a difference in understanding the message of Bhagavad Gita is our level of surrender. The degree or the level of surrender we have developed, to that degree, the words of wisdom, the words of Lord Shri Krishna will resonate with our consciousness. To that degree, our life would be tailor-made according to the desires of the Lord. And to that degree, we'll be successful in our life. To that degree, the message of Bhagavad Gita will be revealed to us. That's the reason Srila Prabhupada in the beginning of introduction of Bhagavad Gita writes, this Bhagavad Gita is not meant for atheists. This Bhagavad Gita is meant for those who believe Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the beginning step to understand Bhagavad Gita. And that is what Lord Shri Krishna tells Arjuna. You know, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita himself, why Arjuna, I chose you for this confidential knowledge. This is Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter 3rd verse. Sa evayam maya tyatya yoga pukta puratanaha bhattosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etaduttamam. This most confidential I'm telling you because you're my bhakta, you're my dear friends. So this is the qualification the Lord Shri Krishna is expected or demanded from a person who can actually thoroughly understand the message of Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna had that qualification. Moving forward, Duryodhana went to Balramji. Balramji, Duryodhana was his favorite, and for Duryodhana, Balramji was his favorite. Duryodhana went to Balram and he said, Balramji, I want you to take my side, fight on our behalf. Balramji said, wait a second. Did you went and meet Krishna? He said, yes. What did Krishna say? Duryodhana said, well, Krishna decided to be on the side of Pandavas. Either way, or the Arjuna chose Krishna, whatever way. So Balramji said, hey Duryodhana, although you are my very dear student, although I wish to fight on your side, but I cannot go against Krishna. Thus, I will not fight on any side. I quit, I go away. And like that, Duryodhana walked away, left Dwarka. While he was returning back to Hastinapur, he got to know uncle of Pandavas, brother of Madri. Does anyone know what was the name of brother of Madri? Madri, who was the mother of Nakul and Sahadev. Please type it into the chat box. What was the name of uncle of, or the brother of Madri, uncle of Pandavas? So Duryodhana got to know he's a great, powerful warrior. Nobody can defeat him. He has been, particularly blessed. So he said, I want to have him on my side, and I know for sure he's going to support Pandavas. So he deceived, and the name of the brother of Madri was Shalya. He deceived Shalya by doing an incredible guest reception. When his whole army was walking towards the camp of Pandavas, Duryodhana had arranged a great guest reception or hospitality for Shalya on the way. And when Shalya was received in such a fabulous way, in hospitable way, Shalya became extremely pleased. And he thought this must be done by Pandavas. Because he was a dharmic king, and being a dharmic person, his heart was filled with gratitude. He became very grateful. And he said to his assistant, go and call the king who has served me so nicely. I'm so grateful for all his service. I want to bless him. Whatever he wants to ask for me, I will give him. Because he was a great king, he gave a word like this, and he thought for sure it must be done by Pandavas. He never thought that it would have been done by Duryodhana, and blindly gave this word that whatever the king who has taken care of me so nicely, have done such a great guest reception, I'm willing to give him whatever he wants. And to the surprise of Shalya, Duryodhana appeared. And King Shalya was like, oh my goodness, what is this rascal doing here? And Duryodhana said, my dear sir, you said you have promised, you've given your word, so I want you to fight on my side. Like that, Shalya was deceived. But here's a little lesson, maybe relevant or maybe not directly, but as a practicing devotees, we have to be, it's relevant to everyone, I would say, for all of you also. As a practicing devotees or as a devotees of the Lord, we have to be very careful from whom we accept service. Because the heart of a practicing devotee is such, by default, it becomes very soft and is filled with gratitude. And whenever anyone serves you, by default, you feel kind of an obligation to reciprocate to that person. In that case, we have to be careful not to fall in a trap, just like Shalya fell into the trap of Duryodhana. So be very careful from whom you accept service. At least for brahmanas and for brahmacharis and for sannyasis, is a strict, you can say, an ordinance in that sense. They have to be very careful from whom they accept services. Nonetheless, let's move forward. There's a lot to be discussed. Somehow the time flies very quickly. The messenger sent by Drupad reached Hastinapur, and he spoke. He said, "Return the king, my dear king," and he spoke from the Vedic scriptures about the duty of the king, or the duty of Dhritarashtra at this point of time. And finally said, "If you don't return, then Pandavas will be forced to crush you." Everyone was shocked. Brahmana had openly challenged Kauravas for the war if they do not accept, or if they do not return back in the Prastha, back to Pandavas. However, despite this warning given by Brahmana, although it was assembly of Kshatriyas, Bhishma, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Vidura, everyone spoke in favor of Brahmana. And he said, "You have to, Dhritarashtra, you are at fault. You should return back the kingdom because Pandavas have fulfilled their terms and conditions." But Dhritarashtra is not willing to do so. Dhritarashtra called for Sanjay and he asked Sanjay, "I want you to visit Pandavas and give this message of mine." And a very interesting message was given by Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra knew that I don't want to give up the kingdom. And Dhritarashtra also knew that Yudhishthira Maharaj is a very religious person. And if I can speak to him about the consequences of this war, if I can tell him what will, what will be the destruction, the kind of a destruction which will be brought about by this war, then Yudhishthira Maharaj, understanding that Duryodhana, although it was Dhritarashtra's desire, but he put Duryodhana into the front, understanding that Duryodhana is very arrogant, stubborn, and that Duryodhana is not going to give up the kingdom, maybe Yudhishthira Maharaj, being very kind-hearted person, for the sake of the well-being of everyone, may decide to go to the forest and live rest of his life. And if Yudhishthira does, all of the brothers will do. And if all of them go to the forest, Nitai Gaur Haribol, no threat to my position. I remain the king. A perfect plan. And like that, Dhritarashtra, kind of taught Sanjaya what to speak. Precisely, I'm not going to go into details because we're going to speak about the same subject today evening. We have already spent too much time. In precise, the reasons that you hear in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita spoken by Arjuna were actually told by Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya. And Sanjaya came into the assembly of Pandavas and gave the same reasons, where Arjuna was also present. Arjuna heard all those reasons. And another forum, I was making a point. Just because Arjuna heard these comments, you look what happens in the beginning of the war. Arjuna was bewildered. Of course, our Acharya says Arjuna was put into bewilderment by Lord Shri Krishna, which is the ultimate thing, correct, that's thing. But another point which is also described, because he heard one negative thing, and because of which he got affected. So we have to be careful from whom we hear. So here Sanjaya comes and says, Yudhishthira Maharaj, you should not fight, you should not engage in war because Duryodhana is not going to listen. You have no other option but to fight, but understand the consequences. The whole family will be destroyed. Even if you succeed, what will happen? You have no family members. There won't be anyone to enjoy your life. What about compassion? The family traditions, and what about sinful activities would be conducted, would be performed like that. Sanjay spoke on behalf of Dhritarashtra, but Yudhishthira got agitated. Yudhishthira was angry. He said, "Why do you blame me? Go and tell your king. I am willing to forgive them. I am asking my rightful claim. According to the dice game, I have fulfilled the terms and conditions. Now you're supposed to return. But you're not returning, and you are telling me that I am responsible. You're blaming me. This is ridiculous." And that Sanjay again began to speak, because Dhritarashtra had set Sanjay with a very clear mission. Do not return back until and unless you have convinced Yudhishthira Maharaj that he should give up the idea of war as well as of asking for Indraprastha. You should convince him he should go back, and he is a dharmic person, he would listen. And then Sanjay began to speak about enjoyment, just like Arjuna will speak about enjoyment. And like this, Sanjay represented all the points by Dhritarashtra. Finally, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, "Well, whatever it is, I have said, I'm not going to back off." And Yudhishthira Maharaj countered every single point which was spoken by Sanjay on behalf of Dhritarashtra. And then Yudhishthira said, well, I have said the point, you return the kingdom or else we'll fight. And if you're still not willing, I'm not the decision maker. Let Lord Shri Krishna decide. Whatever he thinks is the best, I'm willing to follow. And then Lord Shri Krishna began to speak. And what Lord Shri Krishna spoke to Sanjaya and what message Sanjaya brought back to Dhritarashtra, and how Lord Shri Krishna decided to personally go to Hastinapur as a messenger for Pandavas and make one final attempt to bring about peace between the brothers. And what happened after that, we will discuss all that tomorrow. It's already 6:45, so today I will pause here and we'll continue this remaining discussion tomorrow. So the point is, will Dhritarashtra agree when Krishna will go to him? That all discussion will take tomorrow. A couple of slides were remaining. So for today, we pause here and we conclude our discussion where Yudhishthira Maharaj has said, all right, I have spoken whatever I had to say. Now let Lord Shri Krishna decide. Whatever Lord Shri Krishna would say, I'm willing to follow. And then Krishna began to remind Sanjaya of the sinful acts performed by Kauravas. Then Lord Shri Krishna chastised Sanjaya and he said, you were also present in that assembly when Draupadi was mistreated. None of you, including Bhishma, Drona, spoke up. And you are here coming to speak about Dharma to Yudhishthira? And that's how the discussion happens. All the discussion and what happened ahead we'll discuss tomorrow. I will try to be a little precise and concise. Maybe we can conclude Udyog Parv tomorrow. If not, we'll continue ahead. In case, if I'm going in too much details, you can reply. I can be a little more concise. Otherwise, I don't know when Mahabharata would ever end. So with that, thank you all for your kind attention and for joining us for today evening session. I will conclude here. If in case anyone has questions here, if you have, you can just switch on your camera for a second. So I see. All right. So everyone seems to be content and they have understood the subject matter clearly. So fine. There seems to be no question. Just a quick recap. A very important discussion that we have had was about Arjuna and Duryodhana going to meet Lord Shri Krishna. And there we had spoken about 3 points, which were the key points for today's discussion. Material consciousness versus spiritual consciousness. That was the first point we did. And second point that we discussed about, Duryodhana's behavior, where he was speaking to Lord Shri Krishna about dharma. And I said, it is always easy to speak than to follow. And then I give you 4 points. If we can follow in those things in our life, then we can rise above hypocrisy, which is a hypocritical behavior to ask someone else to do, but not to do oneself. And the third very important thing that we discussed was about Arjuna's surrender in that episode. And we spoke about where we had an experiential exercise with all of you. How would you feel if somebody just comes and dumps their kachra on your forehead and walks away? He doesn't bother about your well-being. He doesn't ask you, how are you? He doesn't care for you, but he just wants his agenda to be fulfilled. And then we discussed in that, all of you said will feel disgusted. And I said, that's how we deal with the Lord. Until we got connection with Krishna consciousness, we came to Prabhupada books. All of us had our consciousness like that of Duryodhana. And now slowly, we are developing a consciousness of Arjuna, where we want to develop a relationship with the Lord, where we want to serve the Lord. So these are some very important points from today's discussion. With that, I thank you all. Yes, Shikhar has a question. Maybe next time Balramji had not partnered. Okay, if that's the question, Shikhar, you can post this question. Maybe next time Balramji had not in the one. I don't know what's that comment here. So I'll take all of your permission because I have a quick meeting to attend before I start my another session for 7:30. So in case some of you are able to join, we'll see you at 7:30 for our first session on Gita Essence. And in case if you have a question which I could not take here, you can please send me a message. You can send a message to me. You all have my WhatsApp number, or else to the host of this program, Vishwakaran Prabhu. Nitai Gaur Haripur, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.